So my fourth worst performer in the King of the Jungle portfolio competition is also a relatively new addition, but it's already up 14% from when I bought it. I'm talking about Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, which is a global fabless semiconductor company that designs and develops high performance computing, graphics, and visualization technologies for the gaming, data center, and computer markets. But because compute is now embedded in everything, AMD's products will start to become more widespread than ever across most industries. Think of the AI landscape as the Wall Street wildlife savanna. Older monolithic chips lumber across its solitary rhinos, big, expensive, and hard to maneuver. AMD's chiplets, by contrast, behave like quick-footed meerkats. Markets. That's the second time I got that wrong. Small, modular, and able to scurry into any computational nook that needs filling. Because each chiplet is its own agile creature, AMD can mix, match, or multiply them at will, growing whole colonies for hyperscale inference or dispatching a lean patrol to an edge device. That modular swarm craft turns AMD from a mere chip vendor into the ecosystem's clever keystone species. It isn't just selling silicon, it's weaving the neural sinews that let computation flow everywhere, up the data center canopy, out to the edge scroll band, and even into pocket sized perches. As inference costs drop and edge deployments stampede, the total watering hole of AI compute will do more than expand. It'll erupt, Badger. In that chaotic habitat, the nimble predators win. Agile outruns brute size, flexibility outwits entrenched mastodons. AMD's chiplet troop is built for exactly that kind of fast evolving terrain, quietly staking out the infrastructure layer of a smarter, automated world, one nimble meat rat mound at a time.
Are you calling Nvidia an entrenched mastodon?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. This is, I gotta say, this is the research deep dive that I had the biggest, what I would call light bulb moment uh, out of all the companies that I took another much closer look. Here's the insight, and I don't know, it makes sense to me. This is the difference between, we talked about this some time ago. In the world of AI, you have the massive compute needed to train the model, which I think of as a seasonal thing. It's like you got to stuff a bunch of data in there, make the model, and then once you've done that, it's kind of done until the next model comes out. But it's like you're doing things in chunks and blocks, right? And for that, you need the biggest and best and most powerful, and that's NVIDIA's chips. And there is no second, right? But that's kind of, I don't know what stage of the AI's evolution we're at, but that's, we're no longer in the first inning with that. But anytime you make a query using AI, you need an answer, and that needs to happen there and then, almost like continuously, infinitely, from now, forevermore, into the future. That is what we call inference, the act of running a trained model in real world applications. So, the aha moment that I had when researching this is that NVIDIA, by design, makes mammoth chips. And I mean, to some extent, literally, like their chips are like huge and they're sort of incredibly complex. And yeah, they're like rhinoceroses, monoliths, elephants, right? Whereas AMD, by design, and this took a lot of forethought on the company's part, they sort of seeded, in some sense, seeded the training market to NVIDIA. And all this time, they've been developing, I'm calling them chiplets instead of chips to differentiate them, smaller and much more flexible and agile, different versions and kinds of chips that could, like Lego blocks, be sort of stacked in different configurations for different use cases, all about the edge cases. That is how you and I will actually use AI. Now, it's not just AI, it's also, anything that could be calculated is can be computed and needs chips. So more and more, your refrigerator will have a chip. Your your car, your thermometer. I'm not just talking about learning language models. And for that, AMD's chips are actually fundamentally better designed because it's a whole different application. And so the proof in the pudding, so to speak, is when I see Meta, a company that right now has more cash than knows what to do with, right? And it's trying to lead the world in AI and creating a metaverse, and it's building its own data center. It's going with AMD. And you have OpenAI, on stage saying, we're going with AMD. These are massive players in the space. So the light bulb for me, Badger, was not that Nvidia is a bad company. It's just that when I look at AMD's market cap of about 250 billion, and the inference part is the part that is now going to take off, I feel like this is almost the moment we had 3 years ago when you and I were both talking in Nvidia, and we were kind of like, this is inevitable, and you got to, like a once in a generation thing, and we were right about that. And I think this is the second coming of that exact scenario. The difficulty to understand, or the thing I had to convince myself of, is that you're not investing in like the second best. You're investing in, call it as good as, because it's just a different thing that's needed. And from today's valuations, I'm kind of like, I'm still sort of, I don't know, I'm kind of I'm kind of excited. I don't know how else to say this. I'm excited that I found what I think is a second shot at investing in the Nvidia moment, and that the market hasn't quite caught up to it yet, because it's not yet exactly, Nvidia's journey took a couple of years to kind of, to unfold. Like, I think AMD is like right at that spot right now. So I gave AMD 6 bananas because it's fresh to the portfolio. I didn't catch the bottom. It was recently at 80 a share. Now it's kind of double that. But to where the opportunity is, I think this is going to ride like a decade long wave in massive, massive potential from here.
Do you happen to know the extent to which like they're going to get smashed by, say, Google? Like on my Pixel phone, Google developed their own chips now, and then they have like their hardware in my phone, and that's where they do inference, like on the device. So, do you reckon AMD are then pitching themselves against companies who are like mass market producing their own chips to go in the end user devices?
Yeah, that's a good question, because another sort of thesis that I didn't talk about in the pitch was nobody really likes the fact that Nvidia has a monopoly. I mean, because the pricing, I'm not sure if it's price gouging, but basically Nvidia said we could charge as much as we want and you're going to pay it, right? So I think it's inevitable to some extent that if a company like one of the hyperscalers, if they have enough resources to do something in-house, then they will to some extent. So call it Microsoft, Google, Tesla, right? They'll make some chips. But I always go back to the fact that when you have a company that has only one thing to do, they're going to do it better than anybody else can. And this space changes faster. I mean, the evolution and the amount of brain power, engineering brain power, and actual resources needed to get these things to iterate and make it the best of breed is a job for one, I would say. So I don't know. I'm basically not worried about the kind of edge cases of siphoning off some bits of the market to the in-house stuff. But what remains is still going to be such a gargantuan market that even if AMD captures, I don't know, 25% of it, It's like hundreds of billions of dollars of recurring revenue, basically, for the foreseeable future.
All right, good one. I like it. AMD. I've got Nvidia. I own another company in this space I'll tell you about in a sec. I don't own AMD, and it could well be worth a look.